Henry Ford and Modern Manufacturing. The passage from Henry Ford's 1922 autobiography, examined in an earlier chapter, applies with equal force to the steering wheel data, and the irony has only deepened. It is considered good manufacturing practice and not bad ethics, occasionally to change designs so that old models will become obsolete and new ones will have to be bought either because repair parts for the old cannot be had, or because the new model offers a new sales argument which can be used to persuade a consumer to scrap what he has and buy something new. We have been told that this is good business, that it is clever business. Our principle of business is precisely to the contrary. The parts of a specific model are not only interchangeable with all other cars of that model, but they are interchangeable with similar parts on all the cars that we have turned out. Henry Ford and Samuel Crowther, My Life and Work, Garden City, New York, Doubleday, page 1922, pages 148 to 149. Ford described as the correct principle of manufacturing parts that are interchangeable not only within a model, but across all vehicles the company has produced. He described this as an ethical requirement, not merely a business preference. Chery, in 2023, maintains steering wheel parts that have been in continuous production since 2001. Parts shared deliberately across multiple models, available to any owner of any vehicle in which they were originally installed. A Chery owner needing a replacement steering wheel today can obtain a part that has been in uninterrupted production for nearly a quarter century. A Ford Escape owner whose vehicle was built in 2009 faces a catalog that listed 74 distinct steering wheel part numbers for that model, and in which the overwhelming majority of those parts have been discontinued before the vehicle reached its 5th birthday. The Ford Escape's steering wheel catalog, for a single model, exceeds Tesla's entire global steering wheel parts count. It represents parts churn at a scale that would have been recognizable to Henry Ford as exactly the practice he condemned, applied to exactly the component that separates the driver from control of the vehicle. It should be noted that owners of a Model T of any year will find any replacement part need in great supply from many sources, such as https://www.modelt4.com, https://www.snydersanticaauto.com, and https://www.chafinsgarage.com. The consumer, a worsening picture. The economic consequences of parts churn documented in Article 1. Discontinuation of parts needed for repair, burden on owners of older vehicles, regressive cost distribution. Apply with greater severity to steering wheels than to horns for 2 reasons. First, the churn rate is dramatically higher. Where 37.9% of Ford horn parts were discontinued within 4 years, 86% of Ford steering wheel parts were discontinued within 4 years. A Ford vehicle owner who needs a replacement steering wheel after 4 years of ownership faces a better than 8 in 10 probability that the specific part for their vehicle is no longer available from Ford through authorized channels. Second, a steering wheel is not a horn. A horn is a convenience and a safety feature. A vehicle with a non-functional horn is inconvenient and technically non-compliant with federal equipment requirements, but it remains drivable. A steering wheel that cannot be replaced because the correct part is unavailable may render the vehicle unrepairable as a practical matter. The consumer's investment is not merely inconvenienced. It may be destroyed. Independent repair shops, structural foreclosure. The situation facing independent repair shops is worse for steering wheels than for horns, for the same reasons. A shop serving a mixed fleet of Ford vehicles across multiple model years must manage the possibility that steering wheel parts for any given vehicle may have been discontinued after just 4 years of the vehicle's manufacture. The practical consequence is that a Ford vehicle requiring a steering wheel replacement, for any reason, including collision damage, airbag deployment, or electrical failure, may be unrepairable through independent channels. The parts do not exist. The vehicle must be declared a total loss or routed to a dealer network that may have access to new old stock or manufacturer-sourced alternatives unavailable to independent shops. This structural foreclosure of the independent repair market is more severe for steering wheels because the component is more expensive, more critical to vehicle function, and less readily substituted through aftermarket alternatives. The airbag integration alone makes aftermarket substitution of steering wheels technically demanding and potentially dangerous. A shop that cannot obtain the correct Ford steering wheel part for a specific vehicle has limited good options. The supply chain, stranded investments at scale. A supplier who tooled up to produce a steering wheel variant introduced in 2009 and discontinued in 2010, a one-year production span, made a capital investment that was unrecoverable through normal production volume. Steering wheel tooling is substantially more expensive than horn tooling. The molds, clock spring interfaces, electrical harness routing, and airbag retention systems required for a modern steering wheel represent a significant per-part investment. A one-year production run amortizes none of it. 76 Ford steering wheel parts lasted exactly 1 year in production. Each represents a supplier's stranded tooling investment. Those 76 parts are 4 times the total number of Tesla steering wheel parts, which have accumulated zero stranded tooling investments over 17 years, because none of Tesla's parts has been discontinued. The Chery data. Interchangeability in practice. Chery is the third largest automobile manufacturer in China. Recently, it moved up from 5th place. It is China's #1 automobile exporter. The Chery steering wheel data deserve extended attention because they demonstrate something that the horn data only implied, that cross-model interchangeability is not merely an aspiration, but an achievable and documented engineering practice in contemporary automobile manufacturing. Chery's catalog does not simply show low part counts. It shows, explicitly, that multiple vehicle models share the same steering wheel parts by design. The QQ Suite, S11, shares parts with the Fora, A21. The Tiggo T11 parts serve the A1 Chemo, S12, and the Chery, A18. The E-Star Cross parts cross-reference to the Fora and the QQ5. These are not accidents of compatible specifications. They are documented design decisions. The catalog itself records them as shared parts, not as separate parts that happen to fit the same vehicle. The implication is significant. Chery did not simply produce fewer part numbers because it had a smaller or simpler lineup. It produced fewer part numbers because it designed its vehicles to share components, a practice that reduces tooling costs, simplifies inventory management, increases supplier production runs, and ensures that any owner of any vehicle in the shared family can obtain the same replacement part. This is, in precise and literal terms, what Henry Ford described in 1922 as our principle of business. Parts interchangeable not only within a model, but across all models. It is being practiced today, not by the company Ford founded, but by a Chinese manufacturer whose oldest steering wheel parts have now been in continuous production for nearly a quarter century. The steering wheel data and Sherman Act Section 1. The legal analysis presented by the Supreme Court in Eastman Kodak Company v. Image Technical Services Incorporated, 504 U.S. 451, 1992, applies with great force to the steering wheel data. The Kodak framework asks whether manufacturers' parts management practices serve a legitimate engineering purpose or function primarily to foreclose competition in the downstream aftermarket. 3 elements of the steering wheel data are directly relevant. First, the volume. 601 steering wheel part numbers, where 18 and 17 suffice for manufacturers of comparable scope, cannot be justified by engineering requirements. The complexity defense has been examined and found wanting. A part's catalog 17 times larger than a competitor's is not an engineering output. It is a commercial strategy. Second, The churn rate. An 86% four-year churn rate means that Ford's authorized dealer network is effectively the only reliable source of steering wheel parts for most Ford vehicles more than 4 years old. Independent shops cannot stock parts that are no longer produced. Aftermarket manufacturers cannot justify tooling for parts with 1 or 2-year production runs. The field of competition in the aftermarket for Ford steering wheel service is, as a practical matter, restricted to Ford's own dealer network, which is the outcome the parts churn pattern produces. Third, the structural incentive is clear and unmistakable. Ford's authorized dealer network profits from parts sales and service labor. A parts strategy that makes independent repair of Ford vehicles difficult or impossible for steering wheel components. The most critical mechanical interface between driver and vehicle serves the dealer network's financial interests directly. The Kodak court recognized that a manufacturer need not have primary market power for its aftermarket practices to be unlawful. The question is whether the practices serve a legitimate purpose or function to foreclose competition. The steering wheel data suggests the latter. The video description has URLs for Google Sheets spreadsheets, which contain basic data for all 601 Ford steering wheels, 18 Tesla steering wheels, and 17 Chery steering wheel. Links to the spreadsheets are presented below.